The adventure begins with a girl named Helena running through the deep forest, a place where nothing could be seen except endless trees and plants, far from any city by thousands of kilometers. Helena eventually reached a small house where her mother, Linda, was calling out to her, but Helena ignored her and went back into the woods, as if searching for something unknown yet extremely precious. After some time, while running, Helena came across a hunter with a gun. His name was Jacob, and he was actually Helena's father. Jacob loved his daughter deeply. They were each other's comfort zone and had lots of fun together. Jacob often took Helena into the forest to teach her how to hunt. He taught her everything she needed to survive, and Helena had learned many things, like identifying animals by their tracks and predicting which direction they might go. After walking farther into the forest with her father, Helena spotted a large deer grazing calmly, an ideal moment to attack. But this time, Jacob didn't shoot. He handed the gun to Helena and told her to take the shot. Although she knew the basics, she had never practiced in real life. When she aimed at the deer, she made a small mistake, creating noise, and the deer ran away. Helena had missed her first shot. Jacob reassured her to stay calm, telling her she would get many more chances and just needed to be fully prepared next time. He continued teaching her various tricks of hunting. Later, they both returned home where Linda was waiting. But Linda was upset and scolded Jacob for putting their daughter in danger. Jacob, however, believed firmly that he needed to make Helena independent like him, so she could survive any threat or hardship that might come her way. We then learned that whenever Jacob came back from teaching Helena something, he would add another tattoo to her body. Even though Helena hadn't succeeded in hunting that day, Jacob still marked her with a new tattoo. Her body was covered with many of them, from her face all the way down to her stomach. The connection between these tattoos and hunting would become clear later, but one thing was certain: Jacob was planning something that even his own family didn't know about. The next day, while exploring the forest, we saw even more tattoos on Helena's arm, meaning her father kept marking her for some unknown reason. Suddenly, Helena heard her mother Linda screaming. When she reached the riverbank, she saw that Linda had fallen into the water, and Jacob was trying to pull her out. Everything seemed normal after that, and they returned home from hunting. Helena had a small bird-like toy that made sounds, something Jacob had crafted for her. When she played with it at night, her mother scolded her and told her to let them sleep since they had to hunt again the next day. Helena quickly placed the toy beside two dolls in the room, dolls that looked strangely like something from dark magic, but neither Helena nor her mother understood this. The next morning, Jacob and Helena went hunting again, only to be shocked when they discovered that the trap they had set for a wolf contained only a severed wolf's leg, as if the animal had purposely broken it off to escape. They couldn't understand how that was possible. Jacob told Helena not to overthink it and continued the hunt. They spent hours in the forest, killing several animals, and gathered enough meat to last many days. Father and daughter enjoyed their time together, playing around, and we noticed a new tattoo on Helena's neck. We also saw that 3 of Jacob's teeth were made from some kind of unusual metal. Many things in that forest remained unknown, things no one was paying attention to. One night, while Helena was sleeping with her family, she suddenly heard growling outside. She got out of bed and looked around, only to discover a pack of wolves outside their home. The wolves were starving and roaming around in search of food. They had picked up the scent of humans from the house and followed it straight there. Jacob woke up from the noise as well and told Helena that these were predators and that they had to eliminate them. Helena had never hesitated during hunting before, but this time she felt different. She sensed that the wolves weren't trying to attack them, they were simply hungry and searching for something to eat. She even suggested giving them some meat. But Jacob handed her a gun and insisted that they needed to kill the wolves to protect their family. After being pushed repeatedly, Helena picked up the gun but couldn't bring herself to shoot. She didn't have the heart to kill such helpless animals. Jacob grew frustrated, grabbed the gun from her hands, and shot one of the wolves himself. He then lectured her, saying they must always put their family first and could never trust wild animals because their nature was to hunt. These strange and unsettling ideas kept shaping Helena's mind. Later, we learned that Jacob planned to go hunting alone. Helena asked to go with him, but he refused, saying that if she stayed home for a few days, he would have a surprise for her. Helena agreed, and Jacob left with his gun. But the problem was that Helena was extremely attached to her father, and without him there, she felt restless. At night, while her mother Linda cooked dinner, she barely spoke, as if she were hiding a secret she couldn't reveal. By morning, Helena grew even more bored and spent her time outside, swinging alone. Helena then noticed a man approaching, a tourist who was asking for directions to get out of the area. She was shocked, because ever since she was born, she had never seen another human being besides her mother and father. The tourist just wanted to find the way back to the city and was asking for information. When Linda heard voices, she rushed outside, and the moment she saw the stranger, she grabbed Helena, ran to his car, and begged him to leave immediately and take them with him. The poor tourist was completely confused and didn't understand what was happening. Before he could react, a gunshot rang out. The bullet hit the tourist in the throat, killing him instantly. It turned out Jacob had fired the shot from a distance, clearly trying to keep some terrible secret from being exposed. Linda quickly started the car and tried to take Helena far away, but Helena loved her father too much. No matter what, she didn't want to be separated from him. At one point, she even tried to break free and run back to Jacob. Forced to act, Linda knocked her daughter unconscious and drove off. She kept going until she reached a safe place. When Helena finally opened her eyes, she found herself in a police station with an officer named Clark, who assured her she was safe and didn't need to worry. But Helena only asked about her father, where he was and how she could get back to him. She grew anxious in the station because everything was unfamiliar to her. Even the smallest modern object seemed completely new and strange. Linda eventually arrived and tried to explain that Jacob was not a good man, that he had kidnapped her years ago, brought her deep into the forest, and forced a family life on her. She warned Helena that Jacob had a dark secret and planned to use her too. But Helena refused to believe anything against her father and instead blamed Linda, insisting she was the reason Jacob acted the way he did. Helena demanded to be taken back to him. Linda convinced the officer to lock Helena in a room so she couldn't escape. Helena banged on the door for a while, but when nothing worked, she broke through the window and escaped. It was already dark, and she found herself in the city for the first time, stunned by the streetlights, cars, and modern surroundings. Seeing other people left her completely overwhelmed. While wandering through the streets, Helena suddenly heard the familiar sound of her little bird toy. The sound was coming from across the street, and when Helena looked closely, she saw Jacob standing there, calling out to her with the little toy bird. She understood immediately and ran straight to him. Father and daughter were overjoyed to reunite. Jacob told her never to leave him again and claimed her mother was cruel and only caused problems. He was about to take Helena away when police officers arrived. Knowing he couldn't fight them, Jacob told Helena he would return for her and fled before he could be caught. Helena didn't want to lose her father again, but he was gone, and the officers took her into protective custody. No one knew what Jacob was planning or what dark secrets he was hiding, but it was clear his actions were connected to something sinister. Then the story jumps years into the future. A grown woman sits in an office. This was Helena, now much older, working at a multinational company, living as an independent woman. She always hid the tattoos covering her body, never wanting anyone to know the truth behind them. After work, she picked up her young daughter, Mary, from school. Helena clearly had a family now. Every afternoon they visited a park and spent time together, and Mary felt like the only place Helena was truly comfortable. But Mary often asked about the strange tattoos on her mother's arms, since they were faintly visible. Helena always avoided the subject and distracted her. At home, Helena's husband Steve waited for them, kind, caring, and dedicated to his family. One evening they attended a friend's engagement party where Steve's friends noticed the tattoo on Helena's neck and asked about it. Helena lied, saying a random tattoo artist had done it. She even lied about her parents, claiming they were officers who died in a car accident. It was obvious she didn't want her past to resurface. Later that night, a police van transported two criminals, and one of them had a tattoo matching Jacob's. It was indeed Jacob in custody. But he never intended to stay captured. He pulled out a tiny pin, unlocked his handcuffs, attacked the officer, grabbed his gun, and killed him. As he continued firing, the van lost control, crashed, and flipped over. The next day, as Helena was returning home, she saw several police officers and FBI agents outside. Worried, she rushed inside, where officers immediately began questioning her. They told Helena that Jacob, her father, had escaped while being transferred, killing the officers escorting him along with an accomplice. The police suspected that Helena might still be in contact with him. They said that if she shared anything she knew about Jacob, everything would be fine, but they needed to capture him at any cost because he was an extremely dangerous criminal. Hearing about her father after so many years completely shocked Helena. She never imagined he was still alive. A little later, Steve arrived and slowly learned everything. He was stunned because Helena had always told him that her parents died in a car accident, so how was her father Jacob suddenly alive? The officers warned Helena that this situation could be dangerous for her family too. Jacob was a violent killer who had kept his own wife imprisoned for years, so capturing him was extremely important. Steve understood the danger and, angry with Helena, decided it was safer to leave with their daughter Mary. Before Helena could explain anything to him, The officers told her she had a few days to give them information, otherwise they might have to kill Jacob. Distressed, Helena stayed home while Steve took Mary far away. When her husband finally called, she learned he was staying with Mary in another hotel and wouldn't return until the situation was resolved. He barely spoke to Helena and ended the call, clearly worried about their family's safety and determined to protect his daughter at all costs. Overwhelmed, Helena went down to the basement to think. She opened a small box and found a whistle her father had given her many years ago, along with a knife that also belonged to him. Thinking about all these things, Helena found herself revisiting her past, the years she had spent deep in the forest. But now, after so many years, she couldn't understand how her father was still alive or why he hadn't aged at all. She couldn't sleep at night, so she went out walking into the forest and even took a dip in a nearby lake to calm her mind. Meanwhile, in the middle of the forest, Jacob and one of his accomplices, who had escaped police custody, were shown waiting for someone. A car eventually arrived at a gas station and picked them up, hinting that Jacob was planning something shocking. The next morning, a police officer named Clark visited Helena's home. He was the same officer who had been at the station years ago when Linda brought Helena there for help. Since that day, Clark had treated Helena and her mother like family. But a few years ago, he learned that Linda had died by suicide. Even though Helena was now an independent woman, Clark still saw her as his daughter and even offered her a place to stay with his family. Helena thanked him but said she needed to resolve her family matters first, and once things settled, they could all live peacefully as a large, united family. Another officer soon arrived and took Helena to meet a female FBI agent who had new information. She explained that a car carrying Jacob and several of his men had crashed the previous night and burned completely. Several bodies were found in the wreckage, though it wasn't confirmed whether any of them were Jacob or his accomplices. Still, the severity of the crash made it highly likely that Jacob was dead. Helena felt both relieved and heartbroken, unsure of how to react. When she returned home, she discovered that her daughter Mary and her husband Steve had also come back. Overwhelmed with joy, she hugged Mary tightly. Steve, however, still wanted answers about why Helena had lied about her parents. Helena explained everything, saying she kept it secret because she didn't want her past to destroy the family she built with him. She became emotional as she spoke, and Steve comforted her, reminding her that they were a strong family and that she should be open with him from now on. Steve had to leave for work, so he got into his car to go, but Helena, still emotional, ran in front of the vehicle and began explaining the meaning behind all the tattoos on her body, each one connected to the natural life of the forest. All of those tattoos had been created by her father back when he used to take her hunting as a child. Helena always feared that if she told her husband the truth, he would leave her. But Steve only wanted one thing, to know she was being honest with him. He stepped forward and hugged her, showing that he fully accepted her. With everything finally settling down, Helena went with Steve and their daughter Mary to the home of Officer Clark. Clark was overjoyed to see Mary and even told her she could call him Grandpa. When they all went inside, Helena noticed that Clark had preserved many photos from her childhood. The album made it clear how deeply Clark cared for her. He had practically raised her. Overwhelmed, Helena promised she would visit him regularly. Later, when she was driving home alone, she suddenly heard strange sounds, the same ones she would hear years ago while living in the forest. She hit the brakes and saw a three-legged wolf crossing the road, the same creature she had seen many years earlier. She couldn't understand how it was standing right in front of her again. Terrified, she rushed home and went straight to bed. But that night, she felt the presence of her father, Jacob, standing right in front of her. She jolted awake only to realize it had been another nightmare. Similar visions kept haunting her, disturbing her mind. The next morning, she noticed clumps of dirt on the floor, footprints that made her fear her father had entered the house. But then she discovered they belonged to little Mary, who had been playing outside. Relieved, Helena went to the market to buy some things, but in the middle of the bustling crowd she suddenly heard a familiar sound, the whistle of the bird toy she used to blow as a child to call her father. Hearing the whistle again, she instinctively followed the sound. For a moment, Helena felt certain she saw her father Jacob standing ahead of her, but the crowd was so dense that she couldn't find him again. Maybe it was just her imagination, but deep down, she knew it wasn't. Helena didn't mention anything to her husband and tried not to focus on it, yet she couldn't ignore the truth anymore. Her father wasn't dead. He was somehow still out there, making his presence felt around her. Terrified for her family's safety, she set up traps all around the house, ropes tied between trees with bells attached so that anyone touching them would trigger a sound. She even prepared a separate trap meant specifically to capture her father. But Helena had no idea that something far more terrifying was about to happen, not just to her, but to her entire family. That night, just as she was about to sleep, she heard one of the bells ring. Someone was moving around outside, trying to get in. She immediately grabbed the knife her father had once given her and carefully stepped outside toward the trap. To her relief, it was only a rabbit caught in the ropes, already injured before it got trapped. Still uneasy, she went back inside and called her godfather, Officer Clark. He calmly told her the rabbit was probably already hurt before getting stuck and that she shouldn't overthink it. Trying to convince herself, she went to bed. But the next morning left her shocked. Her childhood dolls, the same ones her father used to handcraft for her, were lying right in front of the house. Mary said someone had given them to her. That was the final confirmation: Jacob was alive. The weight of these secrets was crushing Helena. She knew she wouldn't rest until she uncovered the truth. She immediately went to see her husband Steve, but even then she couldn't bring herself to tell him what was happening. Helena told Steve only one thing, that she needed to keep just one last secret from him. She said she would be gone for a few days and asked him not to question her about it. Steve was deeply worried, but after comforting him, she left. Helena drove straight into the forest where she had once lived. She built a small raft and paddled across the water until she reached the old place where her childhood home still stood. As she approached, memories flooded her mind, walking here with her father, living in the wilderness. Part of her had always believed Jacob was still alive and hiding in that very house. When she stepped inside, she heard faint noises. Moving carefully, she finally saw him. Her father Jacob was truly there. He looked older, worn down, but smiled and said he always knew she would return for him. Father and daughter embraced with overwhelming emotion. They walked together through the forest, just like they used to. Jacob insisted that everything he had ever done was to protect his family. When they reached the riverbank, he told Helena to bring Mary there so the three of them could live together in peace. But Helena firmly refused, saying her family already had a good life and she would not uproot them. She still remembered how he had imprisoned her mother, Linda, for years. Back then she was too young to understand, but now she knew the truth. Jacob kept pressuring her to stay with him, but Helena wouldn't agree. As she headed back toward home, she suddenly saw Officer Clark, her godfather, standing there. Worried for Helena, he had come looking for her. Panicked, Helena begged him to leave quickly before her father saw him. But Jacob had already noticed. He raised his gun and fired. Clark was hit, collapsed, and died on the spot. Helena broke down in tears, horrified. But Jacob didn't stop. He began to force his own daughter to stay with him. He grabbed her by the hair, dragged her along, and threw her into a deep pit. Jacob sealed it from above, just like he used to do when Helena was a child. Inside that hole, Helena noticed everything she used to build or play with years ago. But escaping a deep pit like that requires technique, especially when the only way out is straight up. If you're alone and stuck, you have to press your hands and feet against the walls, create pressure, and slowly climb up. It makes escaping easier. The real challenge begins when more than 2 people are trapped, but even then there's a perfect way out. If 2 or 3 people are stuck inside, they should plant their feet on opposite walls and press their backs together to create strong support, then move upward in sync so no one slips. Using this technique, everyone can get out at once. But poor Helena had no one to guide her. As a child, her mother Linda was the one who always helped her out of caves. After struggling for a long time, Helena finally remembered the technique and managed to climb out. She immediately went searching for her father because her family was now in danger. Jacob might kill her daughter Mary. She rushed home, grabbed her father's sniper rifle, and ran toward the river, where she saw Jacob leaving on a raft. Helena took aim and shot him in the arm, but he still escaped by jumping into the water. She reached the spot, but Jacob had vanished. Now she had to track him down using every hunting skill she learned as a child. When Helena reached a farm field searching for her father, she realized Jacob was hiding there. He immediately shot her in the leg, injuring her, then handcuffed her and started dragging her toward the forest to keep her captive. But halfway through, Helena suddenly slipped down a slope. Jacob didn't want his daughter to die, so he tried to grab her, but she quickly trapped his neck with the handcuffs. Both of them tumbled down the hill into a water-filled area, hitting the ground hard enough that they couldn't move. After a while, Helena regained consciousness and tried to grab the gun to kill her father. At that moment, Jacob also woke up, and after a brief struggle, Helena finally managed to get hold of the gun. For a moment, Jacob looked at his daughter with love, but Helena knew he was a killer. To protect her family, she shot him. In the end, Helena killed her own father, even though she never wanted to. But this was her reality. She would do anything to protect the family she had now. And that's exactly what Jacob had been doing too. He never hesitated to kill for his family. In a way, they were no different, both criminals, both fiercely loyal to their loved ones. Helena walked away, and our story ends here.